Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is going to be a fun video. This is the mid-year book freakout tag, and this is a very special one because last year I started my booktube channel, and while it hasn't yet been a full year since I've been here making videos, the mid-year book freakout tag was actually the first video that I made. So even though it hasn't been a full year, it almost feels like I'm getting close to that. And so, yeah, this is super exciting. It's just going to be a very chill video with some of the typical questions and just other updates for things that I just had in mind. So, yeah, and it's kind of cool that it's actually in the middle of the year. So, yeah, let's start. Like, the first question is, how has your reading been this year so far? And honestly, I can't complain. I think it's been a great year. At first, I thought it was going to be a bit of a slower reading year just because I started my master's degree and I have been busy with that, obviously. But I think I have been able to get in some good reading. I have been making progress in series, which is great to see, especially series that had been long in the back, kind of, or that I have been waiting a while to kind of continue. So that has been great. I have been reading a lot of work by women and BIPOC authors, so that has been really exciting. And yeah, I've been very mindful and very conscious of what I'm reading, so I feel very great with that. So, what is the best book that I've read so far? That is always a bit tricky. I think the one that I would point to right now, or the book that I just doesn't get out of my head, is Temporada de Huracanes, Hurricane Season by Mexican author Fernanda Melchor. This is a book that I have talked a bit recently, so I will not dive super deep, but the story follows a small town in Mexico. This is a rural town where you have a character called the witch who unfortunately is discovered dead in like a cornfield or something. And in each chapter in the book, you follow different point of views, and you learn how people in this community relate to one another and to the community, and eventually like to the witch, and how this witch woman is the center in a way of holding this community together. And it was just very powerful, very hard to read, but I don't know, I just feel so much empathy for the characters, and it has just made me think so much about how many people in the world have been abandoned by their governments, by their relatives, by society in general. So I don't know, I think it was a very eye-opening read, one that I don't recommend lightly because of its content, but that I can't stop thinking about. And I'm so proud that this is a Mexican author and someone that we should be supporting. So yeah, that has been for sure what I think the most or most often about. Um, so the next one is, what is the best sequel? And that is right there. And it's The Trouble with Peace by Joe Abercrombie. This is the second book in the Age of Madness, so the second trilogy in the First Law world by Joe Abercrombie. Yeah, it is The Trouble with Peace. And yeah, that was such a good continuation. I read it at the start of the year, so it's been a while, and I actually haven't been reading that many series outside of the First Law and Malazan. Um, so this was a very easy pick. The story picks up right after the end of the A Little Hatred, and it was just so good to be back in this world. And once after like the first book did so much to kind of set up the playing field for the rest of the trilogy, and I think the second book in this really delivered. Not only did we get more like closer with the characters and the way they think, their maneuvering, there was a lot of twists and turns that I was not expecting. Definitely a lot of character development that I was not expecting, and I was always it was always so fascinating to read. And to me, Joe Abercrombie's First Law series is really the definition of like books that I can't put down. So yeah, that was an amazing follow-up, and he always is so good at making middle books in his series, both in the first Law trilogy, in the standalones, and in this trilogy. The second book was my favorite in each of them, which is probably just a coincidence, but he definitely does not have the middle book syndrome issue that other fantasy authors have. So that was that. But unfortunately, I need to say that my biggest disappointment so far has been the third book in that same trilogy, The Wisdom of Crowd. Yeah, The Wisdom of Crowds. And yeah, I want to say that I still really enjoyed this book. I think I gave it 4 stars. So this was by no means a bad book. But I think, and I have a video going really in depth into this. So if you want to hear all my thoughts, I will just point that for you. But in summary, I think where the book finished just leaves so many open things. And I thought that, at least at the time when I was reading these books, that this was the end of the First Law series or universe. And I feel like there is so much that is started both in the first trilogy, but in the standalones, this kind of macro level or macroscopic conflict that I thought the Age of Madness would resolve or at least address, and we didn't touch that at all. And so I felt that if this is the last we get of the First Law, I was disappointed that it I don't know, it felt so small in scale and so very, I don't know, just go watch that video. What is a The next question is, what is a new release that you're excited to read? And I am kind of doing a twist on that because I will just be talking about the second book by Emil Wang, The Blood Over Bright Haven. The story follows this place called Bright Haven, which is a city that is powered by magic and technology. And you can think of it almost like Piltover from Arcane, if you watch that. So it's this kind of sci fantasy, kind of steampunky or yeah, sort of city. And they have this protective wall that protects the city from the outside, especially this plague or this supernatural, or how we call it, like just a phenomena called the blight. And so there are people living outside of Bright Haven, a lot of nomadic groups that just travel the land and live haunted, or at least in peril of this blight thing that's happening, that is destroying the land. It literally kills people just like suddenly. And so that is kind of the setup. And you have a woman who is the first mage to become like a high mage in this system, because there are a lot of themes of patriarchy and gender roles. And yeah, this is just a civilization or a city where women are usually not allowed to go after a certain point in the magical sphere. And so you have this woman who is basically fighting against patriarchy to I mean, she is a high mage, but there is still a lot against her. And you have another character that comes from the outside, from the blighted lands, that is now in Bright Haven, and they are basically a team. And I will not say more than that. So yeah, that is this book. It has been super fun to read, extremely readable in a great way. People in BookTube have felt that the author is too explicit about what she's trying you, or what she wants you to learn, to the point where it feels like they're like preaching to you. And I don't know if I agree. I definitely agree that it's a book that is not subtle with its themes, and I don't say that as a negative thing. I think I was really invested in the story, in the characters, and the conflicts very quickly. And I think that is definitely a skill, especially nowadays where fantasy books, are these 1,000-page tomes that don't feel edited at all. I think it takes a lot of work and mastery of literature to write compelling stories that are quite short. I mean, this is under 500 pages, so like almost 400. So this has been amazing. I did call at least the first big twist that we got in the book, I think I thought about it like just a couple of pages into reading it. So I wouldn't say this is like a super like complex story. And I think if you're familiar with these tropes, I don't even know what tropes this is, but anyways, I thought it was very predictable. But that again, like that has not detracted from the reading experience. Anyways, I've spent a lot of time, but I'm reading that right now, and I call that a new release. And yeah, it's been really fun. The next question is, what has been a big surprise? And I don't know if any book has been a gigantic surprise, but I think to me what came to mind first, and I'm just going with that, is Conjunto Vacío by Verónica Gerber. This is a Mexican author, yay. And this follows the story of a woman who just broke up with her partner, and she is dealing with that and kind of finding herself. And at the same time, there is a theme of migration, because her mom, I think, is from Argentina, and they moved to Mexico. So, and she has been absent in her life, and so there is that part about her. And I would say this was surprising because of just how unique and different this story is like told. And I don't know if you've seen my videos, but basically this book contains a lot of diagrams and um, like yeah, diagrams on like set theory, or yeah, like kind of main diagrams. And this author is a visual artist, so it doesn't surprise me that she incorporates these visual elements in her story. And I thought they were super effective at not only communicating some of the feelings that this woman is feeling. I thought that was very beautiful, because maybe there is something about pictures, or even these abstract diagrams that is hard to put together in words. And I thought that was very surprising. And even to that, there is this sex scene that is also narrated through these diagrams. And you could I know that sounds like the nerdiest thing ever, and again, don't think of them as just like mathematical diagrams, but rather, I'm trying to find it, but I also maybe don't want to spoil it. But anyways, but it's narrated through these kind of scribbles, and I thought that was so emotional, and there was not a single word in the entire scene. And yes, I could picture everything, and I could picture the emotion and that kind of physicality, and I thought that was very, very beautiful, and I had never read anything like that. So I think this deserves for sure that recognition. It's also a Mexican author, so that is amazing. I don't know if this work is translated though, but if you speak Spanish, well, this is a great recommendation. That is Conjunto Vacío. And last but not least, is what are the books that you still need to get to? And I am feeling that, maybe going back to that first question, I am feeling great because I put together a list of like my priority reads, and that obviously changes over the year. And there are a lot of books from that video that I actually dropped, or I am not really prioritizing anymore. But from my mental list of priorities, the books that I absolutely need to read is actually quite small, and I have half of the year left. So that means there's still a lot after that that is going to be, a surplus, or what do you call that? Like, yeah, after those, these are 4 books. Everything else is just a bonus. So, wait, it's 5 books. So let's just get into it. So the first one is Minnesteatern by Karin Tidbeck. This is a book in Swedish that I got from Tobias for Christmas, that I still have to read because it's a gift, and it actually sounds quite interesting. And I am excited to read this because it's gonna help me practice my Swedish, but also this kind of magical realism story sounds very interesting. The cover is beautiful. I always talk about that as well. And I'm not super sure about the entire plot, but I know we follow this kind of portal. Do you call it portal fantasy? I think you have this world, alternate world that is magical, and you have a characters that are in this world, and I think they're trying to escape from it because it's dark and twisted, and somehow it crosses paths with our world. So maybe it's a bit of urban fantasy in there. I'm not sure. So that's one. The second one is Desierto Sonoro by Valeria Luiseggi, and I think it's a collaboration with Daniel Saldaña Paris. And this is the last book that I'm missing from books from my kind of challenge of 5 books from Mexican authors. So I know that the author herself is also an immigrant. She lives in the United States, and I don't know how early she moved there. But I think the book follows a family that is on their, like, making a road trip or just going by car, potentially through the border. And so it is a lot of reflections on migration. And that sounds really interesting. So that's 2. Then book number 3 is none other than The Emperor of Gladness by my boy, Ocean Vuong. He is a Vietnamese author, and he is easily the most poetical voice working in literature for me right now. He wrote On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous, a book that I really liked. And it's kind of funny because my experience reading that book was great, but over the years, I just keep going back to listening to videos in YouTube where he narrates the book, and that is just like the cherry at the top of the cake because his voice is so calming, so emotional, so lyrical and poetic, and him reading his own lines, like, oh, it's an experience. So I am so excited to get into this book by him. It's a new release, and it has gotten a lot of popularity. I think it got picked up by Oprah. And I am just so happy for him and for this voice to be receiving this amount of recognition. And yeah, this is a book, I think, about a young boy who needs to take care of an older woman. And I think this is partly inspired by Vuong's life, as On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. So I know it's gonna hit a hard punch, but I'm just so excited to go back into this author's voice. And I still need to read his poetry collections. I'm not great at reading poetry, but I still need to try them. And last but not least, the other 2 books that I have to read. So basically, my reading plans, just when I finish Blood Over Right Heaven, is going to be reading these 3 books, and then finishing at last my Malazan Book of the Fallen journey. So the 2 remaining books are books 9 and 10 in the Malazan series. I don't even know what they're called. I think the 9th one is like Queen of Dreams, Dust of Dreams, something like that. And then the 10th one is The Crippled God. And I am just so excited to conclude this journey. I was really glad that I read Toll the Hounds. I really appreciated this book. I will not share so much more in this video because I feel like Malazan deserves its own video, and I have a lot of thoughts, but also so many questions. And it's just been an incredible journey so far. These are very heavy books, as I mentioned, but I just love listening to people discuss them. Like, I don't know how many hours of YouTube content I've watched or listened to of discussions, and these books have had an impact in my life, and I will also talk about that in an upcoming video. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, reading book 8 was incredible, and I am ready to finish the Malazan Book of the Fallen this year, which sounds crazy. Like, this has been a multi-year journey, and I don't know how many hours of my life I've invested in this series. So I am very excited. I am afraid. I am, just it's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be crazy. So that's basically that. I think that's the end of this video. Thank you so much for listening, and let me know what has been a highlight for you this year. Have you read what you wanted to read? Have you had a disappointing reading year? Or just whatever you want to share. Have a great day and see you around. Bye bye.